Okay, so hernia again, internal organ or vessel pushing out through a weakened area in your body. So a good example of this is when we talk about it's got a fancy name, but it's called a hiatal hernia. So when you're looking at persons, you have the esophagus that comes, the esophagus that comes down, and then it comes into your stomach, like so. Okay, a dividing line between your esophagus and your stomach is your diaphragm, which is right here. And your diaphragm has a little hole in it, which is where your esophagus goes through, and it leads to your stomach. Now, usually it looks like this. Now, what can happen is, for whatever reason, you'll have a weakened area, and it will bulge out like this above the diaphragm, and that is called hernia. Okay. So it kind of weakens and it starts bulging around there. You can have food that collects all in here, which is not good because it's not getting and going through the stomach like it's supposed to. So anyways, that's a hiatal hernia. Okay, then we have pancreatitis. So this is inflammation of the, yes, you got it right, pancreas. Your pancreas has enzymes that it creates in order to break down sugars, proteins, and fats. And what happens is those enzymes that the pancreas is producing sits in the pancreas too long, and it starts actually digesting the pancreas itself. So the pancreas creates enzymes that then turn around and pretty much kill it because it's digesting the pancreas. It's very, very painful. These poor patients are like starved because you have to not give them any food, because giving them food would make the pancreas work, which is not what you want to happen. So these people are in severe pain, and then you're starving them, and it just seems horrible. All right, peritonitis is inflammation of the abdominal cavity. So we call the abdominal cavity as a whole a peritoneum. And so peritonitis is inflammation within there. So not necessarily the organs, but like, so we have our little guy. Okay, and we have our diaphragm, so that's our abdominal area in here. And it's inflammation of the lining of it. So all of this in here gets inflamed, and not good there either, because that inflammation, whatever's bothering it, if it's a bacteria or something, can get into your organs, and then you have, your stomach and liver and intestines and everybody else in there, and it can turn into a really big mess. Very serious. Definitely want to get it treated as soon as you figure out that that's what's going on. Okay, so an ulcer is an open sore in the digestive tract. So again, in that tract, you have bile or you have acid. Either one of them is very harmful to the tissue that's around it. So in the stomach, you have mucus that's in there that will help keep the acid from eating through your stomach. And then in your intestines, you have multiple layers of tissue to keep the bile from irritating the intestines too much. But for whatever reason, if the mucus in your stomach isn't being produced well enough, or if the acidity of the stomach gets more so acidic, then it'll sorry, it'll it can start eating through. So again, with the stomach, the acid starts eating through, creates a hole. This would be the ulcer. Now it can just, you have multiple layers to your stomach, so it can just kind of weaken that area. So if this is your stomach here, you can have an ulcer where it just kind of pops it in like that. If the ulcer gets worse, you can actually like create like a hole that goes through there, and then you're leaking stomach acid outside of your stomach, and that's going to just eat through everything else. So it's not good. Ulcers hurt. Nobody wants them. And then our last one is ulcerative colitis. So this is severe inflammation of the colon, and it also has ulcers associated with it. So chronic inflammation, and it's not just like little bitty amount of inflammation where things are slightly swollen. This is like severely swollen. Your colon can't do what it's supposed to. These people have severe diarrhea all the time. They're in pain. It's not good. But again, severe inflammation of the colon is ulcerative colitis. All right, so that is it for diseases and abnormal conditions. Since we do have a little bit of time, what I would like for you to do is to get your books out and grab a sheet of paper, and I want you to look at least one of these diseases and kind of read through when it describes one of these diseases and kind of pick out a couple of things that you find interesting. Find at least 5 facts on it. If the book doesn't go into enough detail, you may use your phones and you can kind of search around a little bit more. And then I want you to write a couple of sentences about what you learned about that particular disease, not just writing the facts over again, but just, maybe you didn't know about it, or you researched that particular disease because you know somebody who has it, or you have one of these, or whatever. But just so 5 facts, and then a short little thing of what you learned, or just kind of talking about it, okay? All right. We will have workbook pages for tomorrow. We'll talk to you all next week. See ya.